Right. So today we need to do the one question from the user story. So so let's actually have a look uh, a little bit about the user story. Just brush up our memories, and then we'll. So user stories, as I mentioned before. Uh, Often used in agile system development projects. So we'll actually come to agile system development probably a few weeks time, right? Because agile projects keep changing every time because the requirements are very uncertain, right? Um, so these stories are actually turned to the programmers very often than the use cases because usually in agile projects we tend to focus on more riskier items or more riskier functionalities in the very first iterations, because we need to make sure that more risky items have been developed and prototyped and tested before we move into the more general, because that is the more critical aspects in the project, right? So they tend to actually develop it much more earlier. That is why we turned over these user stories to these programmers in earlier iterations. So the program analyst design the codes, the user story, and then pass into the business analyst, and they are the one who is going to test it with the users. And if the test is passed, then it will move into the next bunch of user stories. Uh, so so this is one of the key area that actually nowadays very popular, because the thing is, when you work in the agile projects with the user stories, now user stories are developed by the users themselves, so there is opportunity that we can work directly with the users, right? And the other important thing is it avoids doing too much of documentation, because if the user is working with the project, so we can rectify most of the problems arising from that particular system development activities. Um, but the use case approach, or developing the use case, require the business analyst to develop more documentation before it move into developers, right? So you will realize it once we start the use case description, maybe next week, because there are a lot of stuff we need to complete before we move into the programming aspects. Um, so the user story usually a short sentence, as I mentioned before. So we use the everyday language to write the user stories. Um, so basically, in the user story, we're trying to actually focus on one particular user or the group of users, and they are going to state what they are doing as part of their work, daily work, right? That is what they use. So just a one sentence. So in other words, they are actually describing the goal, right? So what are they expecting? What is the goal they are expecting to achieve when the programmers develop that required functionality on the system? Um, right. So so we are focusing on the user story, who is doing and what he is doing, and why we are doing that, right? So these are three things we are focusing on in the user story. So who is actually developing the user story? Actually, participants or the users, right? We need to encourage them to write, but we need to actually give kind of guidance, right? Because they need to think out of the box, right? Because if you are trying to computerize the manual work, you can't computerize the manual work as is, right? But so that means we need to give little guidance, little guidance to them to write the user story in the right format. Okay, so that is very important. So this is a template, right? This is a template. So we need to fill these blanks, right? So it depends on the project you are working on. Okay, so these are the three things very important, right? So the three important parts we need to um, develop or fill for the users. So actually users are doing that, but we need to guide them, right? So I have given some examples. The first part is the role, right? So what is the role the user is playing? The second part is what we should create, or in other words, what is the goal that we are trying to achieve, the user trying to achieve. Or we actually need to focus on the feature or the functionality of the system. Okay, it's not like logging in, logging out, something like that, because we are not focusing on these stuff at the business, the analysis stage. Remember that all these logging, logging off, or any security issues, or sort of all these hardware issues, we focus on the design stage, right? But not in the system analysis stage. And then the last part is the business benefit. Why is it value to the user? So why we have this functionality, in other words, right? So I have given a bunch of examples here. And then once we develop this story, other very important thing is we need to develop a bunch of acceptance criteria, right? So the user story accompanied with bunch of acceptance criteria, right? So acceptance criteria are the features that must be present for the users to be satisfied when the resulting implementation. So once we implement that, what need to be there, right? What need to be there. So again, we need to focus on functionality, but not the features or any user interface design stuff like the screen colors, how the menus looks like. No, we don't want to focus on these stuff, but predominantly we focus on the functionality, right? So I have given one example which actually fit with the bank teller. So this is the bank teller user story. The first one, bank teller user story. So he wanted to make a deposit too quickly to serve more customers. So what are the acceptance criteria to achieve this goal? So why we need these acceptance criteria? Because these are the criteria we use once the user story have been developed. These are the criteria we use to test it, right? Test it. So the user tests by himself, right? Along with the business analyst to see whether we have met these four conditions or four acceptance criteria in that particular functionality of the system. So if the user is satisfied, say for example, he tick, 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 right? So that means we met the acceptance criteria. So that means that particular part of the functionality passed through the testing, right? And then we can go for the second user case, right? So likewise, that is how the system is developed, okay? So in the agile projects. Yeah, so I have given some examples and a bunch of notes here. And then I gave what are the differences between use cases and user stories. Probably you can read this. what is the differences between user case and user story, right? And then last the Tuesday class we went through the few questions. I think question 1 we completed, question 2 completed. I think we need to now do the third question, where we need to develop some acceptance criteria for the given user stories, right? Right now in your project, for your projects, you need to develop the user stories and acceptance criteria, right? Um, so developing the user story is not that big deal for your project, because the problem is with the acceptance criteria. That is where most of the problem comes in, because now when you selected your subsystem, right? Now you already have what subsystem you guys are focusing on, right? And then you think about who are the actors involved in that subsystem, who is doing what are the processing work, who is doing what part, right? It can be a uh, medical practitioner or nurse or some admin staff, right? Or even sometimes if you focus on some sourcing other stuff from external part, it can be some supplier who supplies some medical some products or some stationery items, etc., etc. So think about that, and if you want to have these functionalities in place in your system, and then you can develop user stories for each and every user that you believe that impacting your has an impact in your subsystem. Okay, right. So in this case, this example they had given. Um, so this is online store, right? So online store, the shoppers are shopping in the online store using their shopping cart or something. So they wanted to develop some user stories to develop that kind of functionality. And what they have done is they already developed some user stories for the shoppers, right, or the customers, I would say, right. Um, so they ask us to develop some acceptance criteria. Okay, right. So in order to answer this question, so let's go to our Excel sheet. So let me open my Excel. Right. So just a minute. I'll opening it. Take little time. My computer is little slow. Just hang on a minute. Right. So let's go to a bank screen. So right. So what we can do in this case. So let's develop two a small table. Say the first column is the user story. So what I can do is I can copy and paste the user story here, and then the second column is acceptance criteria, right? Criteria. So let make it something like this. So let me actually box around here. Right. So what I will do actually, I'll go back and I try to copy the user stories um, to my Excel sheet. Right. So this is my first user story. So let me actually copy it first, all 5 user stories, so then it's easier for me to work with this file. So let me keep a small, just wrap it. And the third one, this is the third one. And then the fourth user story. Yeah, this is the fourth one. Okay, right, all right. Right, so I have now user story. So what I will need to do is find out the acceptance criteria. Okay, right. The first one, so let's just put use 1. This is the 2, 3, and 4. So I think we have 4 user stories here. Right. Right. Now let's take about first one. So as a shopper, right? So that is the user. I mean, um, um, the stakeholder, the user. I want to view the list of products. So that is the goal, right? That's the goal. So I can select some purchase, right? So as a shopper, I want to view list of products, right? So I can select some purchase, right? So the idea is in this user stories. This is the online store, right? This is the online store. So I just actually um, put that there, so I know exactly this is what I am working on. Make it a little bigger. Okay, right. So in order to develop this user story, right? This is a story. So the shopper want to view the list of products, so he or she can select some purchases. So what kind of acceptance criteria, what are the functionalities that you think we can implement to achieve this user goal? So the goal is he want to view a list of products, so the shopper can easily select some purchases, right? So so what are the functionalities do you think? One functionality I believe, so let me write it here. So let me actually write it here. So one functionality I believe is very important is searching, right? If I have search capability, right? If I have search capability for the products, then that actually give a kind of advantage for the users, so they can view the list of products that matches with that search capability, right? So let's actually first write that as a function acceptance criteria. Maybe you can mention search um, for a product, isn't it? So that's obviously a required functionality that we need. So the user can select, view the list of products, so that we can easily select the product he or she want, right? That is one thing. So then the other important thing I believe in this case, when the list comes in, once the search finish, when the list comes in, probably it will be much easier if we allow users to view the products by each category, right? So there can be several categories in the products, right? Isn't it? Several categories in the product. The users can select what they want, which category of products they want, right? So that might be the one important feature that actually give a user that they can select purchases very easily if we give the product wise categories, right? So let's actually give that function with that acceptance criteria here. So that is one of the capabilities we need to actually implement. So view maybe products by let's say category, category, right? So that is one of the important acceptance criteria, I believe. All right. And then what else? And then the other important thing I believe is because they said that they wanted to view the list of product, right? It's not only the search, not only the product categories is important, but most actually that is most important one. I will put that in the first go because we need to have a thumbnail images for each product, right? Thumbnail images of each product. So the system need to display the thumbnail image so the users can click it and then they can enlarge it and see the product very without having any trouble, right? Thumbnail image. I think that is most important in this use case, that functionality, right? So that is one of the critical acceptance criteria or the functionality that we need to implement to satisfy this user need, right? So let's actually put that as a first one. So see a thumbnail, say image for each product, right? So that's really. So actually, let's go to a kind of a example. So let's say we go to a let's go to JB. Let's go to a JB Hi-Fi. So JB Hi-Fi. Let's go to JB Hi-Fi and see whether we have these capabilities. Actually, good. Now, when you developing these kind of things, better you go to a sort of. Now you can see there's a search capability, right? Search product, right? So if I search, say, a computer or something like that. Now see, when I put the search, the categories are coming in, isn't it? These are the categories, right? So that is very important because if you put the general search term computers, um, um, because it's general, there are different types of computer, laptop, tablets, etc., etc. So which one? So it's very easy for the users to select if we have that capability. So that is what I mentioned it here, right? So we have the search capability like this, and then the thumbnail, right? So these are the thumbnail, right? So thumbnail images has to be display. Now see, this one is very user friendly, the JB Hi-Fi. So we can actually see and then enlarge by going through this. So that is very important. So the first one, okay, and these three you can see that it's implemented in JP Hi-Fi. And what else? And then maybe actually the second important thing I believe more important is once I click the thumbnail, there has to have functionality to view the details for the product, right? Right. So when the clicking the thumbnail, we need to view the details of the product, right? So we can say that function is very important, right? So we say click to view details for a product, right? So that is actually there in the JB Hi-Fi, right? So if I click something thumbnail, right? So it actually displays, and then even actually I can enlarge it, right? So enlarge this thumbnail and see different. Now this is actually very user friendly. I can see. So these images give a user to view it in a different aspect, and then even if I want to see the specification, when you click this one, it comes to here, so it gives you all the details, even the reviews given, right? User reviews are given. Yeah, so these are the things actually are very important for the user that you can select some purchase very easily. Yeah, so click the detail for the product, that is important, and then and even actually what we can do, so what are the uh, other important things, maybe in this case we can review the so for example, so in this case we can review the details, right? Reviews, right? We can view the reviews as well. So probably this is another, you can see the reviewers, what they have talked about this particular product, right? So pros and cons, there, so that we can easily select whether this product is accepted by the other users. So maybe we can put that actually as part of acceptance criteria. So we can say to view, so for example, so view uh, product reviews, right? View product reviews. So that is also part of better acceptance criteria to for in this particular use case. Yeah. And then once the product review has been done, and then what we can tell is okay. So we have the ability to add that product to my shopping cart, right? So that is another capability we need to actually put that, because then if I like this product, I can click this and it goes to the shopping cart, right? So and then that's another capability we can build in. So we can say add to, so add to shopping cart, um, maybe say from the detail page, right? Add the shopping cart from the detail page. So that is what exactly here, because once we view all the details, we should be have kind of capability to add it to the shopping carts, right? Right. So I believe the first user story, or this user story is we can actually implement if we can implement these four capabilities, right? So make sense, guys? Does it make sense? Can you give me the feedback? The first one, first user story. Does it make sense? So now how to do the user stories? Can you give me your feedback? Yeah. How about the Michaela, Darcy, Spencer, Rian? Yes, thanks, so Michaela. Yeah, makes sense. Spencer, how do you make Trung, Kwang? Uh, yeah, a little bit struggling. I know, Michaela. The first time it little bit difficult. So that is why I always recommend you to now even in your case, because it's a medical kind of industry, so maybe you can go to small examples, right? Go to websites and see these sort of things, because then you can get a kind of an idea, right? But the underlining steps are same, right? Underlining steps are same. So first go through the story and have a better view about the story, and then that is the first thing, right? You need to develop this first, right? Have a very clear user story, and then think about functionalities as an acceptance criteria, right? Right. So in this case, of course, then not be a big deal. So okay, let's do the second one actually. Let's move to the second one. So the second user story. So as a shopper, I want to review my alright. I want to review my car. Now we add the product, isn't it? We add the product from the first use case, user story. So I want to review my card so I can make the adjustment prior to checkout, right? Adjustments prior to checkout. Right. So what are the functionalities, right? For example, so let's actually go to this card. Now let me go back, and then now I have added one product. Say I want to add something else. So I want actually something else. Say I want this one, some wireless. So I can actually directly add this one to the card. So now my card is there, right? So what are the functionalities, acceptance criteria do you think that can satisfy this? So as a shopper, I want to review my card. Yes, I'm reviewing my card now, so that I can make an adjustment prior to the checkouts, right? So what I can do here is I can view the quantities here. Can you see the quantities here? So I can even add this. For example, if my say uh, if my wife want another one, right? So I can add another one too, right? If she says, okay, I don't want this one, then I can remove, right? So I may have the ability to adjust the quantities, right, freely. So that is one of the capabilities actually the shopping carts should address, right? So that is a very see, this is very user friendly, and then the cost, right? So I need to see the total costs, right? So this actually says before the exclude the delivery, right? Actually, it's very good to now here something missed in the JB Hi-Fi is actually I like to see the tax component. I don't know whether we have the tax component displayed in the card. Let's see whether we have the tax. No, they haven't actually specified how much of tax and what is actually actual product price, and what is the tax that I have paid, and then the total price, right? That would be very better, right? Now that is actually missing in the JB Hi-Fi, right? So I actually like to know the tax, how much of tax I have paid, right? And plus the shipping cost, right? So shipping cost we can calculate by putting this. Now I'm living in Cranbourne, so the shipping cost they says okay, around $9, right? If I deliver in certain dates. So even if I can buy it rather than deliver it. Okay, so click and collect as there. Actually, that is another one we can implement in the shopping cart nowadays, right? Click and collect. So anyway, the delivery fees are clearly there, so that's something that I like, right? And even if I want to navigate the products again, because at the last moment before I check this proceeding to checkout, I wanted to go back and see the product details again before I want to make the final my mind, right? So that capability has to be there as well, because you can't have a shopping cart without going back, right? That's really important, because you can see the thumbnail. From the thumbnail, we can go back and see the product details, because sometimes I may miss something. Okay, hang on, I need to go back and check something else, right? So it has to be there, so I can go back and right, so see, okay, all right, I want to see check something I have missed. I want the stereo speakers, it's there, right? So then I can come back and view my card again, right, without having any trouble, right? So these are the things that we can actually implement as an acceptance criteria for the second use case, right? Also user stories. So I can review. So I want to review my card, so I can make an adjustment prior to checkout. So let's build the acceptance criteria, right? Right. The first one I would say, like I want to view quantities, and items in the cart. That is very important, right? And the second acceptance criteria is I wanted to see a total, right? Total cost, actually before tax, and shipping, right? So then I can see exactly how much actual price is. And then I need to have the capability to remove any items if I don't want anything, right? So remove items, that's something I like to have in my shopping cart. And then if I want to adjust some quantities of the items, I should be able to do that, right? So uh, adjust quantity um, quantity of items. So that is something I actually like to see. And let me make another. And then what else? And then I should be able to navigate to the product detail page if I wish to go back, right? So able to we can say navigate to a product detail page, right? Product detail page. And also probably I can say click and collect. And collect details, right? Click and collect details, because that is very important nowadays, right? Because if so, it depends on whether we have the uh, offline presence, right? If you don't have any shop fronts in your business, probably click and collect is not feasible, right? So it depends. So I just highlight it because it will not going to applicable for every instance, right? But in this JB Hi-Fi, yes, they mentioned that uh, uh, click and collect, right? So that capability is there, right? So I can go to my nearest shopping center and collect it, right? Okay. So that's about it. So I think we finalized the second user story. So we can now move to the third user story. Let's actually move to the third user story. So right, as a shopper, I want to check it out so I can get my product shipped to me. Right, shipped to me. Right, so now this is the shipping part, so I can get my product and ship to me. Okay, right. So that means now the user decided. Okay, without clicking and collect, I want it delivered to my door. Right. So so let's actually go to our page, right? So now I proceed to checkout. Um, right. So then once I proceed to the checkout, so it actually I need to list all my shipping addresses, billing details, right? And then what is this delivery? Yeah, delivery details is there. If, now, click and collect is not applicable, but what it says in this user story is delivered to ship the product to me, right? So these are the capabilities. And then once I put all these details, I can proceed to the payment, right? So maybe we can insert all this stuff in the same page, or maybe we can go to a separate page as this, because that's actually this is very good, because once before this we finish this stuff, we can't move to the second page, right? So anyway, we don't need to actually mention that in the user story, but all what we can do is we can mention, okay, if I want to deliver, I had to fill all my contact details, shipping details, and then enter the credit card details, right? And then again, I actually like to, before I pay, I wanted to see the tax and shipping cost before it finalized, okay, again, right? This part again. But here they says the GST part, right? Right. See, the tax is already displayed. So yes, so I wanted to see this breakdown, in the final step as well. And then I need to say the confirmation message before it finalized, right? And then the payment has to be verified before it proceed to the final shipping state, right? So these are the things we can actually implement as an acceptance criteria in here, right? So let's write down um, uh, here. Okay, now checkout part. So we can say we have to we have a kind of actually, even if I now if I want to ship anything, and I can see ship the products. So if I go actually if I go back, now you can see the shopping cart is there, right? You can see it's pop up, right? So even I am going to some product pages. So if I browse in something, you should be able to go directly from any page to my shopping cart, right? Shopping cart. So that means we need to have a kind of it has to trigger the checkout from any page, right? So we need to have a trigger from any page from the shopping cart, right, without having any problem. So that functionality has to be there. Okay. So we can say mention it here. So let's put that as a first one, because we need to have a kind of a able to go to shopping cart directly from any page, right? So we can mention like, okay, we can mention like, okay, trigger checkout uh, checkout uh, checkout from any page if there are items in the cart, so because that's very important. If there are items, we should be able to proceed directly from the any page, and then we can enter the shipping details, right? So enter um, shipping address, or you can say shipping details, and then we can enter the billing addresses, right? And uh, uh, billing address, and then let's say we put credit card details, right? So enter credit card details, right? So you don't need to mention enter the credit card number, expiry date, etc., etc. That we don't need to put that because this is high level, right? Because anybody can, development team can understand. Yes, we need to have that capability. Um, so entering the credit card details is enough at this stage. Then I need to know, as I mentioned before, we need to know the total including tax and shipping before finalizing, right? So I need to know that. So show the total, can say including tax and shipping before finalizing, right? Before finalizing, that's something we need to implement. And then let's say I need to have a confirmation page, right? Confirmation message before it finalized, right? Because I need to double check whether it's all right. So show um, confirmation message after finalizing, right? After finalizing, and then finally I need to have functionality to verify the credit card details, right? So verify the payment, you can say via the payment processor, right? Via the payment process. So I believe this is enough, right, for this particular user store. So we have a bunch of acceptance criteria. Okay. Right, so let's come to the last one. The last one is, as a shopper, I want to review my orders so I can see what I purchased in the past, right? So for that, actually, we need to, I think, can I make a kind of, yeah, so I can, I need to first create an account, isn't it? Um, uh, so, so account creating capability has to be there, right? Because otherwise I can't see my past orders, right? So I should be able to log in and see all my past orders via my account, right? So then if I have this capability, then I can log in and then I can view the list of any open and completed orders, right? So I have, in this case, I have three items open orders at the moment, and then I can find out the status of the order, right? Once I log in, I can find the status of this order, and then I can navigate the details of the order, or if I wish, right? So that capability has to be there once I logged in. And then of course it has to include a kind of a tracking number as well. Now remember the tracking number in orders if the order is shipped but not delivered yet. So tracking number has to be there in the inside that account, so I can track my shipping details. And then very importantly, I think that if it is a very customer friendly organization, we need to have a customer contact or customer service contact details, so I can direct the queries to the customer services if I have any questions, right? So these capabilities has to be there if I want to review my orders, so I can see I can purchase, I can see what I have purchased in the past. So these things has to be there in for the last use case, so user story, I believe, right? So let's actually write this stuff. So let's first do able to create a customer account, right? Because that will give you a opportunity uh, to save all my past details, and then once I logged in, I should be able to view list of open and completed orders, right? So don't put login, right? As I mentioned earlier, login logout details not important in system analysis state, right? So we can just simply say we should be able to view the list of open and completed orders, right? So view a list of open and completed orders, right? And then I should be able to view the status of the current order, right? So see the status of the order, right? Status of the order. And then I should be able to navigate to the details of the order as well if I wish, right? Because it should be there. So navigate to the details of the order, right? That's also very important. What else I mentioned? And the tracking number, right? Remember the tracking numbers, right? So we need to include tracking number if the order is, you can say, shipped but not delivered, can do it like that. And then customer service contact details has to be there, right? Include customer service contact details, right? So I can actually, even because sometimes if I'm not sure, I can call them because I wanted to see the past purchases, right? So I can directly contact customer service personnel, right? All right, so these okay, so now we completed the user stories. So these are the user stories and the acceptance criteria for this question. Right, so are you guys clear this question, right? So how we have proceeded? So we went through the user stories one by one, we clarify it, and then we wrote other acceptance criteria, right? So I always am telling you, just go to a sample website, so you will see sometimes these sort of capabilities in your subsystem as well. Okay, right, so that is about that question. Are you guys okay with that question? You get any sense, right? You okay with this question now? Any question, any queries regarding this user story? Yeah, all good. Mikela, thank you. Others, Darcy, Spencer, Rian, Kwang, Trung, Song, is it you clear for all? Yeah, all right, thank you. Right, okay, so that is about that question. Now let's move to our next question. So the next one is where is this one? Is this? Yeah. Right. So we done this part. All right. Now we are coming to our usual Acme Garage case study. Okay, this case study. Right. So develop the event table for the Acme Garage. You can select 2 or 3 business processes in this case study to develop the event table. Make sure that you have identified the external event, temporal event, and the state event, right? Right, that is what you need to do. Now we are coming to this case study, so the event table. So now we are focusing again on use cases. Remember the event table. So there are a few things that we need to create in the event table, and then actually I'm not going to do this part user stories because now we just did one example. You can apply that here, but I like to do this one with you, right? To refresh yourself, right? So the same approach you can apply to your case study or your subsystem. Okay. Right, now first thing first, so what we had to do since we need to develop this event table, so let's actually go back to our slides. So I think week 4. So let's take the template, so that will be easier for us to build our event table. So week 4 lecture, I gave the template. So let's go to the lecture slide. Let me browse very quickly for the template. There's the template for the event table. Okay, here is the template. So I'll quickly grab this template. So I just copy, go back, and I paste it here. So I have the template in front of me. So I just then I can do. Let's build the template first. Then we can easily. So actually, I'll build it here. Okay. Right. So the first one is the event. That's the first column. Then I need to find out the trigger, source, and the use case, response, and the destination. So let me actually make it. Let me make it bigger columns. Right, so let me actually do a nice table first with this and highlight, make it nicer. It actually big. All right, so let's go. So what they ask us to do, we need to identify external events, temporal, state, right? So that is what exactly your assignment. Actually, let's go back very quickly to your assignment. So it's in the module section, isn't it? And then you know exactly what you need to do this week. So there's the assignment here. So let's quickly go through. So this is what you need to do, right? So so you completed the workflow diagram. I need to mark it. I'll mark it before this Sunday. All right. So so event table and the user story. This is what we need to actually develop end of week 5. So until we have Sunday, right? So we have a couple of days. So it's you can do it very easily. What you need to do here, so develop the event table, right, and the user story. So these are the two rows. It's important for this week for your project. So you need to identify 6 events in your subsystem. You must identify at least one external event, one temporal event, and one state event. So at least 3 of these are there, right? So altogether 6 events, right? It's much, it's good if you identify two, right? 2 temporal, 2 external, 2 state, if you can, but at least one has to be there, right, for your subsystem, right? That is what you need. And for the user stories, you need to develop actually 2 user stories. Not that big deal. 2 user stories. It's easy. Now we have done one example. You can apply the same concept and make sure, and then you need to make sure that you identify new functionalities, right, for your subsystem, because at the existing they don't have that such a big functionalities at the present, right? Some are done in the manual, I guess, or the Excel spreadsheet, etc., etc. So you need to think about new functionalities, like think about out of the box way, right? So and develop 2 user story, focus 2 users maybe, right? Focus 2 users in your system and develop 2 users. So make it very nice, right? As I did here, as I did before. So like this, so very clear, right? So use the templates. Use the template I have provided for the user story. Okay. So this is what you need to do in this week, right? Before Sunday night, you need to upload this. Okay. So now I am doing event table, so you know how to. So we already done the event table before, but I'll do it again with respect to this case study. Then you can apply this concept without having any problem. Okay. So let's go back to this case study, and we need to identify external events, temporal events, and the state event. Actually, let's clear on that first. So let's go very quickly this case study. So they have the first paragraph, actually they're talking about in general about this Lilydale garage. So Mary and Kim is the one who work in the front office, right? So they are taking the custom inquiries. They are the one who create, delete, and update all the customer profiles, generate custom invoices. Actually, when you read this alone, you will get some idea about the processes or the use cases that you should be able to build in, right? And then the second paragraph talking about customers first visit and they inquire about the fixing the car vehicle, right? And then remember that we are producing a quotes, right, for the fixing the vehicle and send back to the customer. Once the customer accepted the quotes, then we fix the vehicle, right? And then once we have done that, customer need to pay, right? Pay for the bills, right? And then so then that is actually mentioned in here. And the first 2 paragraph, I guess, first 2 paragraph, this paragraph and this paragraph it mentioned there, and then the penalty of flights, and then the reminders are sending, right? These stuff, and then it says it comes to the supplier side, um, um, and then we need to request the parts from the suppliers when the parts gone down for a certain limit, right? And then that is what it mentioned. Then we need to contact the suppliers. We have overseas suppliers and the local suppliers. I think, yeah, it has mentioned in here. Remember last time when I read it. And then and then yeah, so these are the things they have mentioned. So the first thing first, so what we need to do is, once we read it, so I take it as you have read the case study, because we read it before. What we have to do is, we need to first come up with some external events and temporal events and the state events, right? So let's actually um, let's actually categorize these external events. Let's have a bunch of external events, and then some temporal events, um, and then what's the next one? The state events, right? State events. We might not have much state events, but let's see. All right, so the external events, now let's actually start first. So I just highlight this actually. Okay, so let me highlight this stuff. Right, so let's identify first. So the external events, let's start from the customer. Actually, customer wants to make an inquiry to fixing a car. Fixing a car is is an external event, right? So let's actually write down that first. So the event is customer make inquiries on fixing the cars, right? So customer makes inquiries on fixing cars. So let's take this as a one external event. So the trigger is car service inquiry. Inquiries. All right, so the source is the customer, so you know this stuff, right? So source is the customer. So this is the trigger, source is customer. So let's say the use case. So let's say use case manage car service inquiries. We may change these use cases later on, or maybe sometimes in the next step when you develop diagrams, or what you call data flow diagrams, right? That is the next step. We may integrate a bunch of use cases or a bunch of events to represent one bigger use case, right? So we will do that. I'll come to that next week. But at this stage, we just identified the events as much as possible, right? Right. So yeah, so we have the trigger. This is the customer triggering it, use case. So the response from this use case is, so we need to actually send what is actually what we are doing is, first, now remember they are checking their payment status confirmation details with the system, and then say give it to the customer before they proceed further. Remember that that's what we have talked, right, in this case study. So that is the response, right? Perhaps we can say there are two responses. One is service information, because customer is checking, asking the fixing the vehicle. So service information details can be, because if the customer is already there, we can provide the service, what is the previous service information details, plus the payment status confirmation to the customer, right? So let's actually put these two responses there. Service history information as one thing, and then the second one is let's say payment status confirmation, right? Payment status confirmation, right? Right. So the destination definitely the customer, yeah. So this code will go back to the customer. So that is looks like the use one external event. right? So that is one thing, right? So the other external event is with respect to the customer. I would say the code will be generated by the system or by the this company and give back to the customer, right? uh, so um, so so let's actually think about that as whether is it a state event or whether it is a temporal event. Actually, I think I'll list that as a state event because when the customer comes and triggers something, this one it actually once they responded with the payment details, then they trigger the quotation, right? So we can mention the state event that is as a state event, right? So generate um, uh, code, generate code. Actually, if I put numbers, that would be really good. So if I put number 1 here, right? So if I put something like in here, number 1 external, I just put ex here. So I know this state event is linked with this external event, right? Right. This triggers this code, right? So that is the event. So we can say the trigger is so what is actually the trigger in this case? This is the event. Trigger is actually the custom inquiry, right? Custom inquiry generate trigger this state event, right? So we can say like that. So the state event, this is the state event. What is the source? Source in this case. So we can't actually mention the customer because this is internally generated one. Okay. So I would actually mention it as the source as this use case, right? This use case actually triggering this particular um, uh, state use case, right? So I just put manage car service inquiries use case triggers this particular use case, right? So the use case for this state event, to handle this state event, is very easy. Generate code, right? Generate the code. So the response is, what is the response? Car service quotation, right? Car service quotation. So this is going back to the customer, right? So I know this has a link with this. Okay. All right. And the second one is probably we can say what else? So we can say right. So once the quote has gone to the customer says, okay, let's go ahead, right? So agreeing to fix the vehicle, right? So that is actually comes second, right? So what I will do is I just put numbers here. I just put number 2 here, right? And number 3. So I know the sequence, right? So I just put number 3 there. So number 3 it comes next. So customer agrees to fix the car. That's the event. So the trigger is, so the trigger is quotation confirmation, right? That's the trigger, right? Once the customer confirm the quotation, it triggers. So let's say quotation confirmation, right? Okay. So since this is an external event, source is the customer. So it's a customer. So what is the use case to handle this? Okay, so let's say fix car is the use case. Okay, fix the car. And then the response. So fix car. Once the response is, once we finish the fixing the car, the completion notification goes back to the customer, right? Right. So we can say, okay, completion notification uh, and yeah, so completion notification goes to the customer. But there are some other there are some other um, 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 responses as well. For example, we need to remember that if you read it correctly, you need to job list has to be finalized, right? Right. So for this vehicle, this is the list of job. So this is the list of materials, labor costs. So this has to be finalized as part of this, right? But remember, in when you're designing data flow diagrams, right? We are focusing on the system, not the. So I'll come to that in the next week. So I believe I would not list all these information here because let's focus on the external aspects only, because customer is the external part, right? Mechanics and all these admin staff are internal to the system, right? So these things are not actually concerned in data flow diagrams when you go to the next step, right? So therefore, I'm not going to put in detail, but the object-oriented programming or the development, we need to show that, right? So later stage I will actually expand this event table, but at this stage I'll keep it as is because we are not going to object oriented now. Okay, so therefore I'll put only the external agent only. Okay. Okay, so this is the fix the vehicle. So we have done that. And then let's say so let's take the next external event. So let's say customer wants to pay for the bill, right? Customer pay the bill. Remember that we want to pay the bill. Or otherwise you may have say, okay, there's another external event, first generate the invoice and then customer pays the bill, right? So that's also possible, right? But I'll make a I'll put a big high level use case in this case rather than go in detail. Okay, so customer wants to pay the bill. The payment details comes in. So trigger is the customer. I just mentioned the use case. So in order to handle this event, actually I will use process custom invoice. That is the use case, right? Process custom invoice. And then the payment confirmation goes back to the customer, right? So that is my um, That's my response. So that's just the fourth one. Right. So what else? Actually, at the same time, we can put another external event for the suppliers. Now remember, suppliers, we are paying the invoice as well. So let's put that as another one. Uh, as an external event. It's easy because we are handling customer payment here. Then let's put the supplier payment there, so it will be easy for us to later on. So let's say supplier, say the supplier sends the invoice for us, that's the event. So this is the supply invoices. Supply invoice is a trigger. So source is supplier. Now again, in this case, remember we have local suppliers and overseas suppliers, so we don't need to distinguish that at this stage. So let's make it more high level. So when you develop these models, we can break it down further. Okay. So suppliers and invoices, supply is the source. So the use case to handle this one is process. We can say this like the same. We can say process supply invoice. Okay. For this, um, um, payment details goes back to the supply, right? Payment details goes back to our supply. Right. And then that's something that we need to see. Right, so this is the things I think more external. So at this moment, we may have no other events. So when you read this, you may have put some more or populate the external event, right? So let's come to the temporal events. Now, what are the temporal events do you think we need in this case? Now, remember they need different reports, right? What are the reports? I think they require some sort of parts list reports, customer payments reports, right, etc., etc. If you read it correctly. I think at the end of each week, they need to produce these reports to the management, right? So that is a time-based kind of an event, right? Producing these reports. So we can actually put that under the temporal, right? So we can say time to produce. I think there are several reports. I think there is one report for the jobs, um, um, and time to produce. Let's say reports on jobs and part lists. I think customer payment reports. I think that's what they need. Um, Customer payment details. So I just put like that. So the trigger is the temporal event, the time, right? So we can say at the end of, I think each week, at the end of each week. That's what they need, right? So remember this temporal event, there is no source, right? So we can actually say the source is a system. If you want, you can put the sources system itself generate, auto-generate. We can have actually the calendar kind of capability implemented in our system, so it can easily generate, trigger these events. Okay. So the use case to handle this process, let's say we have one big use case called say generate weekly reports, right? So the response is weekly reports, and it goes to the destination is management. Management means in this case the owner, right? Remember the owner. I just put the owner. So don't put the name of the owner here, right? I think Jeff or someone. So don't put the name. Just generally mention the management, the owner, right? Now remember, management in this case is the external agent, right? Externally, he is not part of the system, but the admin staff and mechanics, and also that stock controller is part of the system, right? Part of the system. So they are not external agents, right? So therefore, they are the one who actually sometimes generating these stuff manually at the moment. They are part of this system, right? Uh, so that is why we don't put any use case or any destination for these people, right? Admin, and then the mechanic, and then the stock controller. I can't remember his name, so stock control is there. So these three people are not listed as an external agent, okay? Right, but management, customer, supplier, these are the external agent, okay? This is the things we need to be very, very careful when it comes to at this stage, okay? Because we are doing structured analysis. All right, so management take these reports, and then also management needs some monthly reports, I get, right? Monthly reports. I think the parts ordering kind of reports, uh, delivered parts orders, how many parts they have delivered, unpaid invoices, unfilled orders, etc., etc. So these are the monthly reports. So let's put that as well. Time to produce monthly reports on. Let me actually make it wrap the text. Reports on parts ordering. What else? I think parts ordering, parts delivery. What else? I think unpaid invoices. Unfilled, I think unfilled orders. So these are the monthly report they need. So the trigger is at the end of each month. That's the trigger. So again, I can mention it's a system generated one. So the use case generate monthly reports. Right? So response is monthly reports. So these are the monthly reports. As the response, this goes to the management. Right? And what are the other temporal events do you think we have? Now remember, we sending some overdue customer payment notifications to the customers for overdue notices, right? It has mentioned in the case study, I think every 30 days we are sending, if they haven't paid 30 days time, so we need to send overdue notices, right? That is actually temporal, right? So let's capture that. So let's say send overdue customer payment notification that is that's the event, that's the temporal event. So the trigger is, what is the trigger? We can say 30 days overdue is the trigger. So means once the invoice past 30 days, it has to trigger that, right? So again, it's a system. So we can say we can give a name for the use case. What is the use case? Actually, it can be a uh, part of this as well. Let me actually go back and change this use case name. Now see this use case in this number 4, the customer payment, process custom invoice, right? So let me change this to process customer payments. We can use the same use case to handle these overdue notices as well. We don't need to have a separate use case for that, right? Because that can be handled by the same use case, isn't it? Now see, I had to go back and forth and change the use cases accordingly. That is what we need to do, okay? So looks like it can be handled by the same use case, right? So let's put the same use case. Let's copy and paste it here. So I change the name of the use case because it will fit with both. So that is what I have done. So this is a special one. So what I do is I color code it so I know these two use cases are same, right? And then right, so the response, and we may need the same thing for this way as well for the suppliers, right? So let's see. And then for this case, what is the response? So response is overdue notification, goes back to the customer, right? So we can say customer overdue notification, right? Goes to it goes to whom? It goes to the customer, right? It goes to the customer. Right. So we handle that. Right, so we can actually do the same thing for the supply. Now remember the supply also they have mentioned that sorry, is this here for the supply we need to generate some internal notices. The system need to be notify the P2, that is the set of controller, some kind of notices to contact suppliers if the orders have not received, right? Actually that one is it's not a temporal event, it's not a time-based event, right? So is there any time associated with this? Yeah. Right. So what is this? The parts database should be identified to supplier, allowing Peter to create, add, update, delete, and modify both suppliers and part tables if order parts haven't arrived within the 10. Okay, now this is the part ordering one, right? So it's not belongs to supplier payment. Now let's read it. The computer system will generate several because end of each month, blah 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 blah. Okay, let's go to there. The copy of the orders are stored in the order file, blah blah blah. So this one, okay. Mary or Kim will pay the invoices, right? Pay the invoices for the supplies. That means, right? 10 days after the delivery. All right. So invoices haven't been paid in 10 days. If the invoices haven't been paid in 10 days, the auto notification will be sent to their email to remind them the orders are outstanding. Okay, so that maybe we can actually put that there. We can put that there. Send now, like what we send the overdue payment to the customers, we can send you can generate overdue, notify overdue payment to the supplier, right? So let's actually put that as a temporal event in this case. Notify overdue payment to supplier. This is, I think 10 days after the part delivered, right? Uh, so let's say part received. So again, the system. Right. So now, so let me go back. So it can be like earlier with the customer. It can be handled by the same use case which I have listed in number 5. Let's actually change the use case name in this case. So I just write process uh, uh, supplier payments. So that use case can be the same use case handle this process as well. Okay. So so the same response. So same response like earlier. So we can say purchase payment overdue notification goes to the supplier. So this goes to now even it now it says it goes to the Kim and Mary, since the Kim and Mary is the one who inside this process. Remember they are not external agent, right? Therefore we can't list in this case here, right? So therefore we just list only the supplier. So we just because in the purpose of this is to find out the external agents. But in the object oriented, as I mentioned before, we need to have separately list the Kim and Mary as the administrators who are getting this reminder notice. But at this stage, we are not going to list it, right? So I just put only the external agent supply. Okay. Right. So I think that's mostly right. So we can have another state event actually. Now remember they have mentioned if the orders, if the supplies goes certain level, we need to trigger ordering the stocks, right? That is what it says here, right? If the quantities goes beyond 5, so level drops quantity beyond 5, we need to order the stocks. So that means that is a internal event, right? Internal event. So that is a state here, so which we have to capture. So let's actually put that here. So we can mention as a state event, order the stock. So the trigger is so what is actually trigger? System, right? System need to be system notify the stock level is below the limit, right? So let's actually put that. So below the limit, right? So the source is the system. In this case, it's a system as well because it's generated by the system, right? So the use case to handle this order in process, we can mention it as okay, let's leave an eye. Fulfill orders. Fulfill orders. Fulfill stocks. So let's say fulfill stocks. Right. So what is the destiny? What is the response? Fulfill order. So we need to generate what? Purchasing orders, right? Purchase orders, and it goes to the suppliers. So that's what we generate from this use case. It goes to supplier. Supplies the external agent. Even though it's the copies goes to the P10, copy can go to the admin staff, but we are not mentioning it here. Right. So looks like we have captured almost, I mean, most of the use cases, events for this system, right? So we have a bunch of external events, bunch of temporal events, and then two state events, right? So is it clear, guys? Is it clear how I did this case study? Yeah, Tisong, Michaela, yes. How about Precious, Spencer? You guys are clear? This is exactly what you need to do in your case study, right? Do this, highlight the stuff, construct this event table, right? You need to have at least one each external, one temporal, one state. Now, if you actually go through this process, you can actually identify lots of these kind of events, right? Because it's very systematic, right? Systematically, I go, sometimes I need to change the use case names, because if I see, okay, or some event which looks like can handle in the same use case, so I just change the name for the same use case, right? But the events are different. Events are different. These events are handled by the same use case. Okay. All right, guys. So that is about the question. I think now you should be able to handle your project activities for this week. So this week you need to develop use cases or the event table plus the user stories as we discussed here, right? So please go through the requirements specification document, and then if you rewatch this video, you should be able to do your parts without having any problems, I guess. Yeah. Right, so that's about today's session. Any questions? No questions? If you don't have any questions, we can actually, so we have the question. Let me actually go ahead. Right, so Precious, sorry, you made I just saw it. What do you mean by 1x? Right, so 1x means here, Precious, because this is a state event linked with the first external event, right? First external event. That is why I just put it here, because for my identification, right? This is the reason, okay? Because otherwise I will lose the track, because when we get populated, this is what happened in the practice as well, because my event table may be 100 or maybe 5, 10, 15 pages long, so I can't keep the track. So that's why I just put a small note here to keep the track. This is linked with this. Okay. Keysong, you have the questions. So all the contents of the event table and the user story have to be based on the scenario. Yes, based on the scenario. The thing is, guys, in your case, your problem in the project, probably we may have a very minimal information. So you need to make some assumptions sometimes. You need to get some more information, right? Valid information, right? So what you can do is you can browse the internet, right? think about browsing the internet as go to the comparable clinics and go to browse their website and see whether you can pick some of these events, right? And then relate it to your case study, and you need to state it clearly. These are the assumptions, these are the new information, right? So, and then you construct this event table, then it should be okay. But it has to be related with the case study, okay?